Chapter 133. However, he couldn't care less right now. He quickly took a bite of the steamed bun, got up, and fled into the distance. Just as he turned the corner in front of him, he bumped into someone. Bang! He seemed to have hit a wall and fell backward to the ground. He rubbed his sore nose and quickly grabbed the steamed bun on the ground with his other hand. He didn't blow away the dust on it and just took big bites. After taking 2 bites, he looked at the person he had bumped into. It was a young man in his 20s. He was looking at him calmly. The child was stunned. This young man looked different from everyone else in the base. As for what was different, he couldn't tell. In short, he was very special. This was because he was too young and naturally couldn't sense the difference in the person who came. If he was a few years older, he would know that the person who came was different from the others in the base. He didn't have a trace of despair. Instead, he was calm, quiet, and aloof from worldly affairs. The person who came was naturally emotional. He looked at the child with messy hair and tattered clothes and asked, "Where are your parents?" The child looked away from emotional. He picked up another steamed bun. He took a bite and answered vaguely, "They're all dead." He said it very casually, as if he was talking about someone else. Emotional asked again, "What's your name?" The child ate too quickly and choked. He beat his chest hard and said after a while, "I don't have a name. Others call me Brat, and some call me Brat." Emotional didn't say anything else. He activated his dragon's will and probed into the child's brain, stimulating his brain cells. The child only felt his head heat up and swell. In just over a minute, the feeling of heat and swelling disappeared. At this moment, he felt his mind clear and his eyes clear. Everything within a radius of 700 meters was as if he was seeing it with his own eyes. He could even see the trace of blood at the corner of the unconscious chef's mouth on the other side of the corner. Emotional said, "You're already at level 7 psychokinesis." With his current dragon's will, he could easily activate an ordinary person into level 7 psychokinesis. Of course, he had used this move on Happy before. But for some unknown reason, Happy still did not show any reaction. At that moment, the child looked at Emotional in disbelief. "I'm a psychic? Are you bragging?" At this moment, a dignified and unquestionable voice sounded in his mind. "Answer whatever I ask." The voice echoed in his mind like a thunderclap. His entire body couldn't help but tremble, and he hurriedly stood solemnly. He said respectfully, "All right." Emotional asked, "How many hunters, corpse hunters, and psychokinesis do you have in your base?" The child answered, "There are 373 hunters, more than 30,000 hunters, and 125 psychokinesis." Hearing this, Emotional thought to himself that this was indeed the case. Emotional asked again, 200 kilometers to the east of your base, there is a Fan's Pure Mountain. Who in your base knows the situation there best?" The child replied, "I know Brahma's Pure Mountain the best." Emotional was a little surprised. Logically speaking, he had used the leader's will on the child, so the child would definitely not lie to him. But he was only a 10-year-old child. How could he possibly understand the situation over there the best? The child continued, "Although I have never been to Brahma's Pure Mountain, I hang around the corpse hunter group every day, and I often hear them talk about Brahma's Pure Mountain. According to them, there is something very strange there." Emotional nodded and said, "Go on." The child continued, "They said that there are blood-red vines growing on the mountain within a radius of more than 100 kilometers. The entire Brahma's Pure Mountain has become a blood-red mountain. There are also powerful mutated zombies and mutated beasts around Brahma's Pure Mountain. There are even many powerful mutated beasts and zombies." Emotional asked, "Are there super mutated zombies?" The child replied, "I don't know." Emotional nodded, took out 2 pieces of fresh bread, and said to the child, "Eat this. Go to the corpse hunter group tomorrow and ask about Brahma's Pure Mountain." The child's eyes lit up when he saw the fresh bread. He had only seen bread once in his life in the base. At that time, he saw the corpse hunter group eating from afar, but he didn't know what it was. He took the bread excitedly and said to Emotional, "Thank you. Thank you." He ate it in big bites. In the next 2 days, Emotional activated 5 more people into level 7 psychokinesis. Among the 5 people, one was the deputy staff officer of the base. He learned a lot about Brahma's Pure Mountain from them. There should be a virus hive in Brahma's Pure Mountain. There was indeed a powerful mutated zombie that was far beyond level 10 around the virus hive. Immortal was sure that it was the level 3 super mutated zombie. After knowing this, he had a rough idea. That afternoon, he left base C10. With his strength, no one in base C10 could discover that he had left. He left base C10 and went to Brahma's Pure Mountain. Along the way, the trees and plants gradually turned blood red. He killed a lot of mutated zombies and mutated beasts along the way. After more than 10 minutes, he finally arrived at the foot of Brahma's Pure Mountain. He looked with his blood demon eyes. He saw the corpse aura on the mountain as if it was about to solidify. However, this corpse aura didn't make him feel scared. He put away his blood demon eyes and saw that all the trees on the mountain were covered with blood-red vines. The 10,000 steps cloud ladder that went up the mountain was also covered with blood vines that were as thick as an arm. When Immortal arrived, these Sanguisurincus were like thousands of snakes, crawling toward Immortal. If it was before, Immortal could only fly. But now, his long way spread out. The Sanguisurincus suddenly withered and fell to the ground. Immortal ran up the 10,000 step ladder. He didn't fly. His flying speed was only about 300 meters per second, which was much slower than his dragon shadow step. Moreover, there was no cover in the sky. If he encountered a sudden attack, he wouldn't be able to dodge. It was safer to walk on the ground. As he ran up, there were naturally many strong zombies and mutated beasts blocking his way. There were no ordinary zombies on Brahma's Pure Mountain. Even the weakest ones were mutated zombies. However, for Immortal, he could get more evolution points this way. He went all the way up the mountain. Wherever the dragon thought passed, all the mutated zombies and mutated beasts would explode into a bloody mist. With his current strength as a level 3 Great Hunter and level 1 Long Xianxia, there was nothing on Brahma's Pure Mountain that could stop him. In just more than 10 minutes, he had reached the top of the mountain. There were 2 peaks on the top of the mountain. The tallest one was 94 meters high. It was tall and straight, like a huge stone pillar that rose from the ground. This was the Red Cloud Golden Peak. Chapter 134. At this time, the top of the Red Cloud Golden Peak was covered by blood-red vines. The road above the Red Cloud Golden Peak was almost vertical. It would take a lot of effort for ordinary people to climb up. Immortal used the Dragon Shadow step and reached the top of the Golden Peak in 1 step. In the center of the Golden Peak, there was a huge crack that divided the Golden Peak into 2 from top to bottom. There was a small temple on each side, one for Sakyamuni and the other for Maitreya. They were connected by a bridge in the middle. Legend had it that this Golden Peak was originally a complete stone pillar. Sakyamuni and Maitreya both wanted to use it as a place of cultivation. The 2 Buddhas couldn't agree, so they went to the heavenly palace to complain. The Jade Emperor couldn't decide, so in the end, he used a golden saber to divide the Golden Peak into 2, and the 2 Buddhas each took half. However, at base C2, the old monk said that the stone pillar was a dragon-suppressing nail. Immortal didn't believe it when he heard it. But now he was somewhat convinced. He took out the map from his backpack and looked at it carefully. At the same time, he used his dragon sense to scan a radius of 50 kilometers. The terrain within 50 kilometers was similar to what was drawn on the map. The dragon ruins should be on this Brahma's Pure Mountain. Putting away the map, Immortal focused his gaze on the top of the mountain. The entire top of the mountain did look like a dragon's back. Below the Red Cloud Golden Peak was like a dragon's head. Below the old Golden Peak, opposite the Red Cloud Golden Peak, was like a dragon's back. The 2 golden peaks were the dragon's suppressing nail. In the middle of the 2 golden peaks, there was a temple. It was the Chingen Temple. It seemed that the Chingen Temple was also to suppress the plague dragon. However, at this time, the entire outer wall of the Chingen Temple was covered with Sanguisurincus. Above the Chingen Temple, there were dozens of huge sarcomas with a diameter of 10 meters. Every sarcoma was pulsing rhythmically. The entire Chingen Temple had been occupied by the virus and became a virus hive. Immortal used the flesh and blood of the zombies he just killed to condense a virus clone. He had the clone run toward the virus hive. The clone came near the hive and jumped onto the sarcoma on top of the hive. It slowly sank into the sarcoma and entered the hive. Inside the mother nest, the entire Chenggen temple had been hollowed out, forming a huge blood pool. In the blood pool, there were dozens of powerful mutant zombies. They all looked like monks. These strong mutated zombies, after absorbing the blood from the blood pool, all of them grew to over 80 meters in height. They looked like giant blood-colored Buddhas. Their strength had reached the limit of level 10 strong mutant zombies. He was only one step away from becoming a super mutant zombie. However, in the end, he was still one step away. The virus clone used its psychokinesis to scan the area. SSSSS. Rip, all of the level 10 mutant zombies were torn into pieces. One must know that Immortal's virus clone had already reached level 10 psychokinesis. Dealing with these level 10 mutated zombies was like playing around. But at this moment, waves of blood began to rumble within the blood pool. The entire blood pool seemed to have become extremely unstable. A moment later, a human silhouette slowly emerged from the rolling waves of blood. This human silhouette did not have any skin on its body. The bloody flesh was exposed to the air. Its facial features also looked somewhat distorted. This corpse was the level 3 super mutant zombie that Immortal had seen in the mother nest's consciousness before. However, with the addition of the blood pool in the mother nest, its current combat power was close to that of a level 5 super mutant zombie. Facing Immortal's virus clone, its fists continuously pounded its bloody chest, causing flesh and blood to splatter everywhere. At the same time, it roared, roar, a shockwave visible to the naked eye was suddenly emitted from its mouth. It spread towards the virus clone. The virus clone hurriedly used Dragon Shadow Step to dodge. With one step, it stepped behind the super mutant zombie. Then, a genetic weapon appeared and directly slashed towards the back of the super mutant zombie. However, at this moment, his genetic weapon was directly grabbed by the super mutant zombie with one hand. It grabbed so accurately, as if this super mutant zombie had eyes at the back of its head. Looking up, Immortal could not help but be stunned. Didn't this guy have a face at the back of his head? In other words, this super mutant zombie had a face at the front and back. This super mutant zombie roared, "Lowly human, pitiful reptile, today I'll use your blood to replenish the blood pool." As it spoke, its hands suddenly tore. Rip, the body of the virus clone was directly torn into two halves. In the blood pool, dozens of tentacles suddenly stretched out, greedily devouring the flesh and blood of the virus clone. Immortal could also be considered to have experienced the feeling of being torn apart from the side. After the super mutant zombie tore the virus clone, it jumped out of the mother nest. On its back, a pair of huge demon wings slowly spread out. With a slight flap of its wings, it instantly covered more than 300 meters. It arrived in front of Immortal on the red cloud gold roof. It did not immediately make a move. Instead, it sized up Immortal from head to toe and let out a roar from its throat. "Lowly human, I haven't gone to find you yet, and you actually delivered yourself to me. Then prepare to die." As it spoke, its right arm made a crackling sound and turned into a 100-meter-long sharp blade, directly slashing down towards Immortal. The huge sharp blade drew a semicircular arc in the air. Facing this guy whose strength was comparable to a level 5 super mutant zombie, Immortal did not dare to be negligent. With a light tap of his feet, he activated the Dragon Shadow Step. His figure instantly retreated 10 kilometers. The next moment, boom, the entire red cloud gold roof, which was more than 90 meters tall, suddenly collapsed under the zombie's blade. The super mutant zombie missed its attack and roared. Flapping its wings, it chased towards Immortal. However, just as it chased for more than 300 meters, suddenly, its expression changed drastically. The next moment, it retracted its wings. It instantly dived down towards the mother nest. Soon, it arrived at the top of the mother nest. It raised its arms abruptly. At the same time, the thousands of Sanguisurincus around the mother nest, which were as thick as thighs, also rose instantly, forming a Sanguisurincus shell, protecting the mother nest. Just at the moment when the Sanguisurincus shell formed, boom, an invisible dragon's will meteorite fell from the sky. It smashed down fiercely. Boom, the entire Sanguisurincus shell was instantly shattered. Thousands of broken vines flew hundreds of meters away in all directions. A huge blood-red shockwave spread out. The blood-red trees around the broodmother's nest snapped one after another. Dragons will meteor. Mo sure knew that with the strength of this zombie, it was very likely that it would be able to dodge his dragons will meteorite. But it was alive, and the mother nest, although it was also alive, it could not move. So Mo sure's dragons will meteorite directly smashed towards the mother nest. The mother nest was the foundation of all zombies. This super mutant zombie had to be saved, so it could only use its body to withstand the dragons will meteorite. At the top of the mother nest, the body of the super mutant zombie was pressed down, making cracking sounds. But it relied on the cushioning power of the Sanguisurincus shell to withstand the telekinesis meteorite. However, the dozen sarcomas under its feet were shattered by the huge impact. Blood splattered everywhere. At the same time, its arms were also broken by the huge impact with a crack. Dozens of tentacles grew on its body. These tentacles quickly supported the top of its head. Thousands of tentacles stretched out from the blood pool in the mother nest. Together with him, they supported the invisible dragon's will meteorite above its head. Then, it turned its head and roared angrily in the direction of Mo sure. "Despicable human, I will tear you to pieces." However, its roar was only halfway through when it abruptly stopped. As if its neck was being strangled. Its grayish-white eyes were filled with fear as if it had seen a demon from hell. Chapter 135. The super mutant zombie let out an angry roar from its throat. This human was too despicable. He didn't dare to confront it head-on, so he sneakily attacked the nest. However, its roar was only halfway out before it stopped abruptly. Because it saw that the human was floating in the air. His right arm was stretched out, and his right hand was empty. It was as if he was waiting for someone to give him a weapon. The entire Brahma's Pure Mountain, and even within a radius of 10 kilometers around Brahma's Pure Mountain, all the zombies and mutant beasts had been killed. Their bodies exploded into a bloody mist that eventually stained the grass, the tree trunks, and the ground. However, at this moment, the blood seemed to be attracted by something. It slowly floated up into the sky. If someone was here at this time, they would see the phenomenon of the rain flying backward into the sky. However, this rain was blood-red rain. The blood rain flew into the sky. Finally, it all gathered in Mo sure's empty right hand. In his right hand, the blood water slowly condensed into a substance. The outline of a long spear gradually appeared. Finally, it slowly condensed. The entire spear was about 3 meters long and completely blood-red. On the body of the spear, there were protrusions that looked like dragon claws. On both sides of the spearhead, there were sharp blades in the shape of dragon wings. The sharp blades flashed coldly under the sun. The entire spearhead was in the shape of a fist-sized dragon head. There were dozens of sharp barbs on the dragon head. The pair of dragons was so red that it could drip blood. Coupled with the sharp dragon teeth, it was exceptionally ferocious. The demon-devouring dragon spear. Finally, it was born again. And this time, the demon-devouring dragon spear gathered the blood of millions of infected people. Just the mighty long way emitted from the spear body caused all the Sanguisurincus in the entire Brahma's Pure Mountain and within a radius of 50 kilometers to wither instantly. Even the super mutant zombie that had reached the combat strength of level 5 couldn't help but feel fear under the mighty long way. The tentacles beside it that were supporting the dragon meteorite quietly retracted into the nest at this time. Mo sure held the blood-red demon-devouring dragon spear in his hand, and his cold eyes were covered with a layer of blood-red color, like an ancient demon god. At a certain moment, the dragon spear in his hand suddenly stabbed out. The demon-devouring dragon spear turned into a blood-red dragon. The dragon was 1,000 meters long. His wings were like the clouds in the sky. This pair of sharp claws was actually comparable to the red cloud golden dome from before. The scales on the blood-red dragon were distinct. Above the sunlight, there was a blood-red glow. The dragon head was like a small mountain. The huge mouth opened like a cave. It retracted its wings and swooped down. He charged straight for the mother nest. Even the super mutant zombie whose battle power had reached level 5 was filled with fear at this time. At a certain moment, he forcefully pushed the dragon will meteorite away. He then turned around and fled into the distance. In the eyes of zombies, the mother nest was like their mother. Now, this super mutant zombie had abandoned the nest and escaped alone. It could be seen how much psychological pressure the giant dragon was exerting on him. However, could he escape? The 1,000-meter-long dragon swooped down. A pair of front claws grabbed the nest. Rumble, the entire Fan's Pure Mountain, which was more than 2,000 meters high, seemed to shake. The entire mother nest, along with the mountain ridge beneath it, was crushed. Countless boulders rolled down along the mountain ridge. As for the super mutant zombie, it was directly torn into two under this claw. The corpse was thrown far away. Ordinary super mutant zombies, with the support of the blood pool, could quickly recover even if their heads were blown up. But the demon-devouring dragon spear had a strong restraining effect on viruses. This super mutant zombie's body was torn into two parts, and its head was still intact, but it could not be restored. Before it died, it let out another roar. "The king will not let you go." In the distance, the old golden dome shook twice under this violent vibration. Finally, it collapsed. The giant dragon spread its wings and soared into the sky. In an instant, it disappeared above the sea of clouds in the distance. Only a shocking dragon roar was left. Roar. Within 100 kilometers, all the zombies and mutant beasts were terrified when they heard this dragon roar. They lay on the ground, shivering. Until now, Immortal slowly landed on the top of the mountain that had become a ruin. Even he was shocked by the power of the demon-devouring dragon spear. The demon-devouring dragon spear, which condensed the flesh and blood of millions of zombies, almost overturned the entire mountain peak with one claw. The power of the demon-devouring dragon spear was terrifying. But that super mutant zombie, with the support of the blood pool, was also quite strong. It could force him to use the demon-devouring dragon spear. Fortunately, he had taken care of that guy now. If there was anyone in the whole of Wuxia who could pose a threat to him, it would probably be the king. He did not know what the king's strength was. But from some of the information obtained from the mother nest, it was definitely a super mutant zombie that did not exceed level 10. With Immortal's strength, which was equivalent to a level 5 super mutant zombie, it would not be long before even if the king came, there was no need to be afraid of it. At this time, Immortal used the dragon's will to explore the ruins of the mother nest. He saw that there was indeed a crack hidden in the ruins of the mother nest. Immortal came to the entrance of the crack. He used the dragon's will to explore. It was still dark below. But through the dragon's will, it was not a narrow passage like the previous dragon's ruins. The bottom of the crack was empty. Under the dragon's will, it seemed that the entire Brahma's Pure Mountain, which was more than 2,000 meters high, was hollow. There did not seem to be any danger inside. But he did not go down immediately. Instead, he used his mind to directly place the virtual sentry tower under the crack. What if there was danger that the dragon's will could not detect? After the virtual sentry tower was set up, there was no alarm sound. Immortal condensed another virus clone. He let the clone jump down into the crack. He observed the entire huge cave through the clone's perspective. He saw that this huge cave was about 1,000 meters long. It was 700 to 800 meters wide. On the top of the cave, there were stalactites of various shapes hanging upside down. On the ground, there were large pieces of stone. If one looked carefully, they would find that these were not ordinary stones. Each piece contained the bones of an animal. Obviously, these were all fossils. If all the stones were connected, the entire fossil could be pieced together to form a skeleton fossil about 1,000 meters long. Although the fossilized skeleton seemed to be incomplete in many places, it was still not complete. But one could roughly see the overall shape. A huge skull, ribs, a tailbone that was hundreds of meters long, and a few claw bones. There was also a pair of huge wing bones. Giant dragon fossil. Even though Mo was only seeing all of this through the virus clone's perspective, he was extremely shocked. There really were giant dragons in the world. And their bodies had actually reached 1,000 meters long. The head of the giant dragon skeleton fossil was pierced through by a huge stalactite that was more than 300 meters long and more than 10 meters thick. The heart was also pierced through by a huge stalactite. According to the position of these two stalactites, they were below the Red Cloud Golden Peak and the Old Golden Peak. It seemed that the dragon-subduing mountain, dragon-suppressing nail, that the old monk had mentioned was actually true. Chapter 136. Sign in at 136 Dragon Ruins again. Level 2 Xianxia. The virus clone probed the dragon ruins for a while, but there was still no danger. Only then did Mo enter the crack. After descending for about 1,000 meters, he landed on the ground. Dragons will instantly spread out in all directions. After confirming that there was no danger around, only then did Mo open his mouth. System, sign in. Just like before, the system replied instantly. Frowny face. Sign in successful. Sign in location, Dragon Ruins. Sign in reward, 1. Blood Wings. Sign in reward, 2. Invulnerable Body. Sign in reward, 3. Virus 0. Sign in reward, 4. Dragons will devour. Mo carefully checked these rewards in his mind. Blood Wings and Dragons will devour were skills. Blood Wings was a flying skill. Dragons will devour was a skill that devoured dragons' will. Devouring the enemy's dragons' will to improve one's own dragon's will. Moreover, this devouring dragon's will could ignore the other party's dragon's will level. Mo shook his head and smiled bitterly. This skill looked very impressive, but it was actually useless. There was no other Xianxia on Earth now, so who could he devour? As for the Virus 0 and the Invulnerable Body, they were very impressive. Virus 0 was considered a virus seed. Place it on a certain creature and activate it with Dragon's Will. It could quickly infect any creature in the surroundings. Animals, humans, and plants wouldn't be spared. Moreover, it would mutate rapidly. No matter how fast the vaccine was developed, it wouldn't be able to keep up with the speed of its mutation. In other words, once it was placed, one could only wait to be infected. Unless one had an invulnerable body. If one wanted to destroy a country, using this Virus 0 was the most suitable. Invulnerable Body directly strengthened Mo's body, making it invulnerable to all poisons. Even the Virus 0 couldn't infect him. 1 sign-in, 4 rewards. Although it wasn't as much as the previous time, Mo was already satisfied. And don't forget, above the dragon ruins was the virus hive. At special locations, he could sign again. Mo took one last look around and planned to leave the dragon ruins to sign in at the hive above. However, right at this moment, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. In the next moment, his expression changed drastically. An earth-shattering pressure pressed down on him from all directions. Mo knew something was wrong. This was the will of a dragon. To think that dragon will still existed here. This enormous draconic will was dozens or even hundreds of times stronger than Mo's draconic will. The dragon will press down on his body, making him unable to move at all. His draconic will wanted to extend out of his body to resist, but it was also firmly suppressed in his body. He couldn't extend it out at all. Moreover, that incomparably huge dragon will actually bore directly into Mo's body. Mo sighed helplessly. Since he couldn't resist, he could only enjoy it. He immediately gave up resisting. He retracted his dragon will. The mountainous dragon will immediately invaded his body. This dragon will was very domineering. After entering his body, it directly charged towards his brain. It wanted to take over the magpie's nest. Possession. At the same time, a hoarse laughter rang out in Mo's mind. Ha! I've waited for tens of thousands of years, and I've finally waited for a body that can bear my enormous draconic will. It turned out that this enormous draconic will was the draconic will of the plague dragon that was once suppressed here. The plague dragon's draconic will was unimaginably huge. Although its body was suppressed, its draconic will had always been left behind. After tens of thousands of years, most of the draconic will had been consumed. The remaining draconic will was less than 1/10,000th of what it used to be. However, even this little bit of draconic will was not something that an earthling's brain could bear. Therefore, it had been trapped in the dragon ruins for so many years. And now, Immortal, a human whose brain had been strengthened by the modification liquid, had finally appeared. He could barely bear this enormous draconic will that was less than 1/10,000th of it. Therefore, the plague dragon used its draconic will to invade Immortal's body, intending to possess him. The plague dragon's hoarse voice kept ringing in Immortal's mind. "Kid, you're a lowly human. On this barren planet, you can actually give birth to draconic will. You can be considered a genius. Furthermore, your body is actually the undying body of 10,000 poisons. It's even more amazing. If you were placed on any planet in the universe, you would be above any genius. If you don't die prematurely, you can also become an overlord in the universe in the future. It's a pity that you met me. Your talent, your immortal body, they're all taken advantage of by me." Haha, at this point, the domineering draconic will suddenly enveloped Immortal's brain completely. It began to madly invade all of his brain cells. It wanted to devour Immortal's draconic will and occupy his body. It was not worried at all that Immortal would resist. Compared to it, Immortal's draconic will was not even worth mentioning. However, at this moment, Immortal's seemingly inconspicuous draconic will seemed to form an invisible giant mouth in an instant. This giant mouth seemed to be able to swallow the sky and devour the earth. It could devour everything in the universe. In just an instant, it was about to devour the draconic will of the plague dragon. At this moment, the plague dragon's hoarse laughter came to an abrupt end. Then, its voice was filled with extreme fear and disbelief. "No, how is this possible? How did your draconic will suddenly become so powerful?" No. In the end, amidst the plague dragon's hoarse cries, its draconic will was completely devoured. It turned into Immortal's draconic will. Immortal rubbed his swollen temples and shook his head. "Why do you have to do this?" He finally understood why the system gave him the draconic will devour skill. It was to devour the plague dragon's draconic will. As expected, the system's products all had their own purposes. The plague dragon's remnant draconic will was 100 times stronger than Immortal's draconic will. However, the draconic will devour skill was that it ignored levels. Even if you were the most powerful draconic will in the universe, Immortal could easily devour you if he wanted to. Of course, whether he could withstand it after devouring was another matter. Fortunately, Immortal was still able to withstand the plague dragon's remnant draconic will. Moreover, at this moment, a system notification appeared in his mind. Devoured plague dragon's remnant draconic will. Draconic will increased by 1 level. He then looked at his attribute interface. Name, Immortal, level 3 Hunter, level 2 Xianxia, evolution path, Titan Dragon. Seeing this, Immortal could not help but feel a little excited. When he became a Xianxia, he knew that it was extremely difficult to increase his draconic will. Even if he had the system, it would not be so easy. Therefore, he first increased his level to a great hunter. However, he did not expect this plague dragon to take the initiative to come to him. Moreover, it came to him very forcefully, so forcefully that he could not even resist. There was no other way. Since he could not resist, he could only lie down and enjoy it. At this moment, Immortal could feel it. With his level 2 Xianxia strength, even if he encountered a level 4 psychic master, he could easily crush him. Chapter 137. 137 Human-headed spider Immortal's dragon will rose to level 2. He was overjoyed, but also a little disappointed. The plague dragon's remaining dragon will was only this much. Otherwise, wouldn't he be able to level up several times after this devouring? But then again, if the draconic will he devoured was too strong, wouldn't his brain explode from the overload? He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. After all, there wouldn't be any other Xianxia on Earth. Then, he tried to check the plague dragon's memory. However, after searching through the dragon he just devoured, he couldn't find the plague dragon's memory at all. It seemed that the plague dragon was very cunning. The moment it was devoured, it actually destroyed its memory. As for why it would destroy its memory when it was about to die, Immortal guessed that it might have a big secret in its heart. However, Immortal couldn't find out where to start, so he stopped thinking about it. He looked around. There was nothing else here that was worth his attention. He first put away the virtual sentry tower. The reason why the sentry tower didn't alert him before was probably because it could only detect physical dangers. It shouldn't be able to detect telekinesis and other dangers. He raised his head and looked at the 1,000-meter-tall crack. He focused his mind. On his back, a ball of blood-red energy slowly appeared. This blood-red energy was like a blood mist at first, floating slowly without any pattern. However, gradually, the blood mist slowly gathered on his back and formed the shape of a pair of huge wings. This pair of wings was about 6 meters wide. It didn't have a physical body. It was just the outline of a wing formed by the blood-red energy. When he reached out to touch the blood-red wings, his hand went straight through the wings. He couldn't feel any physical body. Energy materialization? Immortal was slightly confused. After all, he had power in his body, but no energy. The Titan Dragon modification fluid could modify his cells, but it couldn't make his body produce energy. How could his body suddenly produce energy? The system answered and explained. The plague dragon's dragon will contains a trace of its former energy. Otherwise, its dragon would have been exhausted. Immortal nodded. I see. Then how long can this little bit of energy keep me flying? The system replied. With the host's current flying speed and energy consumption, this energy is enough for the host to fly continuously for 5 years and 7 months. When Immortal heard this, he was speechless. Good housework. The remnant energy of the plague dragon after tens of thousands of years was enough for him to fly for more than 5 years. How strong was the plague dragon in the past? Would he be as strong as the Titan dragon after evolving into a Titan dragon? Immortal couldn't help but be fascinated by this. At this moment, his mind moved. The pair of blood-red wings that were 6 meters wide did not flap. There was only a slight tremor. In the next moment, Immortal's figure instantly left the ground. In just half a second, he broke through the sound barrier. Bang! A sonic boom came from behind. After breaking through the sound barrier, his speed increased greatly. In an instant, he rushed out of the crack and soared into the sky. In just 5 seconds, he arrived at an altitude of 5,000 meters. The speed of the blood wings had reached 1,000 meters per second. Although it was not as fast as the dragon shadow step, it was much faster than any human, zombie, or mutant beast on Earth. With a thought, Zhang Xian's wings trembled slightly. Then he returned to the ground. The wings turned into energy and retracted back into his body from his back. Compared to the previous wings, the blood wings had another advantage, which was that he didn't have to take off his clothes. Imagine if there was an urgent matter that needed to be solved. If you said, "Wait, I'll take off my clothes first." Wouldn't that be awkward? At this moment, he returned to the top of Brahma's pure mountain. Immortal looked at the broodmother nest that had been destroyed long ago and said, "System, sign in at a special location." The system's voice sounded. Sign in successful. Sign in location, virus hive. Sign in reward, virus clone X10. In other words, Immortal could now condense 10 virus clones at once. The system's rewards were getting more and more generous. After signing in, Immortal condensed 10 virus clones. Now, whether it was his dragon sense or great hunter level, they had both greatly improved. These 10 virus clones were all level 1 Long Xianxia and level 1 Great Hunter. It must be known that when Immortal was only level 1 Long Xianxia and level 1 Great Hunter, there was nothing in the entire Wuxia that could kill him. Now, he had killed that level 3 super mutated zombie. Then, each of the clones here could do whatever they wanted in Wuxia. Not to mention 10 clones. The only thing to worry about was that King Immortal issued an order to these clones. Search and kill infected creatures in the entire Wuxia area. There was no distance limit for the virus clones. Therefore, no matter where these virus clones went, they would still be controlled by Immortal. Moreover, when these virus clones killed infected creatures, the evolution points obtained would also be counted to Immortal. In this way, he could continue to stay in the base. Let these virus clones earn evolution points for him. Of course, he had an important purpose for letting these clones search and kill infected creatures. To find that king. That king still hadn't appeared. Just now, in the consciousness of the mother nest, he only saw a vague outline. He didn't know how strong it was. If it didn't appear, Immortal wouldn't feel at ease. Therefore, he wanted to use these virus clones to force that king out. After the virus clones left, Immortal once again formed the blood-red wings. His wings trembled slightly as he flew towards base C10, which was more than 200 kilometers away. He planned to rest here for a day and then return to base C1. Now, he had the 10 virus clones to help him collect evolution points. Then, he would be able to live a peaceful and carefree life in base C1. After returning to base C10, Immortal stayed in the house of a corpse keeper that was blessed by his dragon's will. Dragon's will swept across and covered a radius of 100 kilometers. After Dragon's will reached level 2, it could completely detect the situation within a radius of 100 kilometers. On the sentry tower of the base, 2 soldiers were chatting. From yesterday to today, the number of zombies outside seems to have decreased a lot. There are also fewer mutated beasts. It's not that they've decreased a lot, they're all gone. Strange, weren't those zombies gathering before to launch a general attack on our base? Why are they all gone suddenly? Who knows? In today's world, there are all kinds of mutated beasts, mutated zombies, and even super-mutated zombies. I don't even know if they'll be able to see the sun tomorrow. Sigh, you're right. Office of the Chief of Base C10. The chief looked at the report that the leader of the corpse hunters just sent. He frowned slightly. All the zombies and mutated beasts have disappeared? The leader of the corpse hunters was happy and nodded. Since the apocalypse, this is the first time this has happened. The chief pondered for a moment and frowned. Do you think this is the calm before the storm? When the leader of the corpse hunters heard this, the joy on his face suddenly froze. Then he said solemnly, "Chief, you mean they're going to launch a general attack?" Chapter 138. Now, he had 10 virus clones that helped Immortal farm evolution points all over the country. Immortal's pace could slow down and he no longer needed to kill in the wilderness. After returning to base C10, he went to a mechanic's house that he had blessed with telekinesis. Lying on the bed, Immortal could not help but smile as he looked at the evolution points in his mind. For the next few days, he would need to spend 1 million evolution points to check Indiana. However, the 10 virus doppelgangers gave him more than 10 million evolution points every day. This was really earning money while lying at home. At the same time, the necromancers and necromancers of base C10 were all pleasantly surprised. The zombies and mutated beasts around base C10 seemed to have disappeared overnight. At first, they were worried that this was the last calm before the storm. However, even after a few days, there was still no storm. They sent out a hunting group to investigate the situation near the base. In the end, they discovered that there was not a single zombie or mutated beast within 200 kilometers of the base. When this news spread, the entire base was in jubilation. It must be known that in the past half a year, the mutated beasts and zombies had become stronger and stronger. They wanted to escape base C10, but there was still no news from the scouting teams they sent out. A layer of haze shrouded everyone's heart. It had been a long time since anyone smiled. Now, smiles finally returned to people's faces. Strange, it's as if all the infected creatures disappeared overnight. Could it be that after all these years of praying to Buddha, Buddha has appeared? Bullshit, there must be a reason behind this. I heard from my cousin in the hunting group that when they went out to investigate, they saw a human killing those infected creatures. Going alone to kill the infected creatures? Is this true? It's fine if you don't believe me. My cousin also said that according to their captain, that person's strength has probably reached level 10 hunter. At the same time, in the base chief's office, the third captain of the hunting group had just finished his report to the chief. The chief's face showed a hint of surprise. "You're saying that there is a mysterious strong person killing infected creatures alone in the wilderness?" The third captain nodded. "Judging from his skills, he's not just a level 10 hunter, but also a level 10 psychokinesis." When the third captain said this, a look of surprise appeared on his face. The bureau chief asked in shock, "Hunter and psychokinesis? And they've all reached level 10. Up until now, there had never been a level 10 hunter or psychokinesis in their base. No one had ever been a hunter and psychokinesis at the same time. Not only was this person a hunter and psychokinesis at the same time, both of them had reached level 10. How could such a human exist? This completely overturned their previous understanding. The third captain replied, "Chief, we can't believe it either. But that is what we see. That human killed his way into a city all by himself. Any zombie that dares to approach within 1,000 meters of it will explode into a cloud of blood mist. It only took him a little more than an hour to clear all the zombies in the city." The chief of the base looked at the third captain. The third captain had always been trustworthy. Since he said so, it must be the truth. However, everything he said was simply too unbelievable. After a while, the chief spoke again. "You didn't see his face clearly?" The third captain nodded. "He was too far away at that time. We only saw a blurry figure. Later, he seemed to have noticed us, but he didn't come over. After killing those infected creatures, he went into the depths of the wilderness." The chief said in surprise, "So, this mysterious person can come and go freely in the wilderness where infected creatures run rampant?" The third captain also said in surprise, "I think so. To be strong enough to come and go freely in the wilderness, this was almost everyone's dream. However, the reason why the word dream was added to it was because it was simply impossible to realize. But now, someone had really achieved it. How could they not be fascinated by this?" At the same time, the same thing was happening in the other bases. C3, C4, C5. In the whole of Wuxia, except for C1 and C2, mysterious people began to appear around the other 7 bases. The mysterious people cleared the zombies and infected creatures around their bases. People felt as if they had seen their savior. Since the apocalypse, people had been facing the pressure of death for a long time. Especially in recent years, the speed at which mutated beasts and zombies became stronger had far exceeded that of humans. In other countries, more than 10 bases had been breached. Millions of survivors were infected or died. This made the whole world fall into despair. But now, a mysterious person suddenly appeared, alone, and could run rampant in the wilderness. How could they not be excited? Many people were grateful to the mysterious person. Many people prayed for the mysterious person every day. They hoped that he could live a long life. They hoped that he could kill all the infected creatures. Immortal didn't care about these. He had seen through human nature long ago. Don't think that if you help others, they will be grateful to you for the rest of their lives. Maybe tomorrow, there will be a greater temptation, and they will forget about you. Take a simple example. Your friend will always ask you to borrow money. If you lend him the first 9 times, he will be grateful. But if you need money for the 10th time and don't lend him money, then you will have offended him. Grumbling in your heart is light. If it's serious, they will even say that you are not loyal and not a friend. Thus, Immortal didn't expect humans to be grateful to him when he cleaned up these zombies. After all, he only wanted to obtain more evolution points. On this basis, he could help humans in a big way, allowing human civilization to continue. However, there will always be changes in everything. On this day, Immortal was looking at the evolution points in his mind. Suddenly, he felt a trace of danger approaching. This trace of danger was not approaching him, but one of the virus clones. This clone was currently near Xianxia Hills. Immortal looked around through the virus clone's point of view. Not far behind him, there was a green-faced zombie figurine that was staring at the virus clone. Immortal was suspicious. Blood demon eye opened. The attributes of the green-faced zombie figurine immediately appeared in his mind. Species, zombie figurine. Level 10 strong mutation. Sure frowned. Zombie figurine? Zombies really exist in this world? The system's explanation came frowny face. The so-called zombies are actually people infected with another type of virus. Sure nodded. This made sense. But there was one point. Even if this was a zombie figurine, it was only a level 10 strong mutation zombie. It should not be a threat to his clone. Why did he still feel a sense of danger? Chapter 139. This green-faced zombie terracotta was only a level 10 mutated zombie. It was impossible for Sure to feel threatened by it. While he was still in doubt, a black shadow suddenly appeared in front of him without any warning. The long sword in his hand instantly drew a ray of light. In the next moment, the virus clone was split into two from the middle. It fell to the two sides. It was also at this moment that Sure saw the figure clearly. A black dragon robe. A crown on his head. A bronze sword in his hand. Although his face was strangely black, just like the green-faced zombie terracotta. But this face's eyebrows, nose, eyes, and whiskers were almost identical to the restored Qin Shi Huang that he saw in his previous life. Qin Shi Huang. Sure couldn't help but ask doubtfully. Qin Shi Huang was resurrected? And he was resurrected as a zombie. The king that he heard from the zombies for a long time was Qin Shi Huang. Thinking about the missing terracotta warriors in the museum, Sure made a rough guess. He had read some history books before. The books said that Qin Shi Huang was in pursuit of immortality and sent the necromancer Su Fu overseas to search for the elixir of immortality. Su Fu went and never returned. Could it be that Su Fu had already returned? And the method of immortality he sought was to be infected with the zombie virus and live forever through the zombie method? When Qin Shi Huang ordered the craftsmen to create terracotta warriors, he was actually creating zombie terracotta warriors. In the end, even Qin Shi Huang himself was made into a zombie terracotta warrior. Although Sure felt that this speculation was ridiculous. But looking at all aspects, this was the only reasonable explanation. It seemed that Qin Shi Huang should be the king that the zombies were talking about. The zombie virus in his body and the virus X in the zombies were two completely different viruses. Thus, even from the consciousness of the mother nest, he couldn't get much information about Qin Shi Huang. Unfortunately, the zombie terracotta warrior appeared too quickly and he didn't have time to see its level. Sure asked in his mind, "System, is the level system of zombies the same as zombies?" The system replied, "Frowny face zombies are also divided into normal zombies, mutated zombies, strong mutated zombies, and super mutated zombies." Sure pondered for a moment, and a thought flashed through his mind. He gave the order to the other 9 virus clones. All avatars, hurry to Emperor Qin's mausoleum. Check the level of Qin Shi Huang's zombies. In the next moment, all the clones rushed to Emperor Qin's mausoleum. Finding out the level of Qin Shi Huang's zombie was the most important thing at the moment. Just as Sure sent those virus clones to rush to Emperor Qin's mausoleum, something happened at base C10 again. It rained continuously for a few days. That morning, the dark clouds in the sky finally dispersed. Sure finished his breakfast and walked out of the room. Seeing that there was no one around, he activated the blood demon's eye. He scanned his surroundings. His brows furrowed slightly as he took a look. He had already cleaned up the infected creatures around base C10. However, when he looked around with his blood demon eyes, he realized that the fog around the base was filled with corpse energy. The corpse chi blotted out the sky, and it was quickly spreading toward the base. Sure probed with his draconic will. After probing, he couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. He saw that in the fog around the base, there were thousands of mutated spiders running quickly. However, under the observation of his blood demon eyes, he realized that the level of these mutated spiders wasn't too high. They were all mutated beasts below level 10. However, there were too many of them. After a rough scan, he estimated that there were about 1 million of them. There were more than 1 million of them, and all of them were mutated spiders around level 5. Immortal was very puzzled. Where did so many mutated spiders come from? However, based on the principle of not thinking about it if he couldn't figure it out, he didn't dwell on this matter. Since they were here to give him evolution points. Immediately, he moved his telekinesis and ordered the 6 people in the base who had been activated by him to rush to the base's surrounding walls. After he returned from Brahma's Pure Mountain, his draconic will had reached level 2. Therefore, he strengthened the telekinesis of these 6 people again. Their telekinesis had now reached level 8. It should be known that previously in base C10, the strongest psychokinesis was only level 6. The psychokinesis strengthened by Immortal was already an invincible existence in the entire base. At this time, under the 3rd wall of the base, a group of soldiers was chatting. What AF * King Fog? If mutated beasts or zombies suddenly attack at this time, won't we be caught off guard? Another soldier glared at him. The mysterious elite has already cleaned up all the infected creatures within 100 kilometers of the base. Where would the zombies and mutated beasts come from? The 3rd soldier also said, "Don't jinx it again. The mysterious elite has helped us clean up the infected creatures. Now, guarding the base has become the safest and most leisurely job. We should enjoy it." Just as he said this, suddenly, a black shadow jumped down from above the wall. It directly pounced on the face of the soldier who spoke. The soldier immediately cursed, F***. He quickly wanted to push the thing on his face away. However, it was too late. One of the sharp needle-like legs of that thing had already pierced his throat. It was only now that everyone saw the thing clearly. They saw that it was a mutated spider the size of a human head. Originally, mutated spiders weren't too scary. They had killed many of them when they were guarding the base. However, this mutated spider made all of their hair stand on end, because the body of this mutated spider was actually a human head. 8 long, slender, and sharp legs grew out of its head. Just one look at this strange scene was enough to send chills down one's spine and make one's scalp numb. When the surrounding soldiers saw this scene, they quickly raised their guns and fired at the mutated spider. The mutated spider was shot until blood splattered everywhere. Even so, it still used its slender legs to stab a soldier's leg. That was why it was killed. The group of soldiers looked at each other, their hearts trembling, because their 2 companions who were stabbed to death and injured were already showing signs of zombification. Their skin began to turn greenish-black. Their eyeballs began to turn white. But this wasn't the most terrifying thing. When these soldiers' attention was on their companions who were about to turn into zombies, they heard a rustling sound coming from above the wall. They looked up. With one look, everyone suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. They saw a row of mutated spiders on top of the wall. Each of the mutated spiders had a human head and 8 legs. Chapter 140. The entire C10 base was shrouded in thick fog. Under the cover of the thick fog, millions of human-headed spiders surrounded the entire base. In the base, the sound of alarms suddenly rang out. All the soldiers, zombie hunters, and zombie hunters headed toward the wall. They tried to stop these human-headed spiders. But there were too many human-headed spiders. In comparison, the tens of thousands of people in the zombie hunters group were insignificant. Even if their psychokinesis could kill a large number of human-headed spiders, even their hunters' genetic martial arts could kill a large number of human-headed spiders. But these human-headed spiders came from all directions. The zombie hunters group didn't have enough manpower, and the ordinary soldiers' damage to the human-headed spiders was extremely limited. So, there were constantly human-headed spiders that slipped through the net and crawled into the base. In the base, they began to massacre civilians. In the repair shop, 4 human-headed spiders crawled in and injured more than 10 people. Those 10 people quickly turned into zombies. The entire repair shop was in chaos. All the workers fled as if they had gone crazy. However, there was a worker who went against the flow. He went towards the mutated zombies with human-headed spiders. A person beside him pulled that person and shouted, "Old he, run!" However, Old he didn't run. Instead, he shook off that person's hand. Then he used his level 8 psychokinesis. In the repair shop, all the wrenches, screwdrivers, iron wires, they converged into a giant steel python. It flew towards the zombies and human-headed spiders. Soon, the giant python opened its mouth and swallowed the zombies and human-headed spiders. Crack, crack, an ear-piercing sound came from the python's stomach. Then, blood and flesh splattered out of the giant python's stomach. The steel python followed the repairman and walked out of the repair area. When it saw the zombies and human-headed spiders, it swallowed them in big mouths. When the other mechanics saw this scene, they were all extremely shocked. Odie's psychokinesis. It seems to be even stronger than the other psychokinesis in the base. F***C, this old he hit it really well. At the edge of the wall, a psychokinesis from the zombie hunters group was using throwing knives to surround the human-headed spider. However, there were simply too many human-headed spiders. The other psychokinesis patients were scattered throughout the base. With his psychokinesis, there was no way he could block it. He watched as the human-headed spiders escaped his flying daggers and rushed into the base. A sense of helplessness rose in his heart. At this moment he saw a dirty child of about 10 years old walking towards him. He hurriedly shouted, "Little brat, run. Find a place to hide." However, not only did the little ghost not run away, but it also charged towards the human-headed spider. When the dozens of human-headed spiders saw the boy, they immediately let out a "zhee" sound and pounced on the boy. However, at this moment, a shocking scene occurred. All of the human-headed spiders within an 800-meter radius of the boy let out a loud bang at the same time. It exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Then, the dozens of zombies that were pouncing on the boy also exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Everyone who saw this scene was stunned. Psychokinesis. The psychokinesis, who was already in despair, was even more shocked. This brat was actually a psychokinesis. It was rare for a child to be a psychokinesis. However, this brat's telekinesis was clearly much stronger than his. Based on the range of his telekinesis, he was actually a level 8 psychokinesis. This was simply too unbelievable. One had to know that the strongest person in the base was only a level 6 psychokinesis. A 10-year-old child was actually a level 8 psychokinesis? Even if he started training in his father's body when he was still a tadpole, it was impossible for him to rise so quickly. At the same time, similar scenes were playing out in 4 other places in the base. Immortal did not participate. With the addition of these 6 level 8 psychokinesis, it was not a problem to defend the base. For these newly promoted level 8 psychokinesis, this was also a chance to train. Moreover, these 6 level 8 psychokinesis were under the control of their leader's will. The evolution points they obtained from killing the infected creatures were also counted on their own heads. Even if these level 8 psychokinesis only killed half of the 1 million human-headed spiders, they would still obtain more than 200 million evolution points. As for Immortal, his attention was focused on a place 50 kilometers away. Although the sky was covered in fog, the visibility for normal people was less than 10 meters. However, Immortal's blood demon eyes could see through the fog and look towards the southeast 50 kilometers away. That was the direction of Tianmen Mountain. At this time, Tianmen Mountain was filled with corpse energy. It almost covered the entire Tianmen Mountain. A few days ago, when Immortal was cleaning up the infected creatures, he also cleaned up Tianmen Mountain. Logically speaking, it was impossible for such a large amount of corpse energy to gather here in such a short time. There must be something strange. He used his draconic sense to investigate. Then he saw a hair-raising scene. On Tianmen Mountain, there was a huge natural karst cave. It was like a gate to the heavens embedded in the canopy of the sky. In front of Tianmen Mountain, there was a stairway to heaven with 999 steps. At this time, the entire Tianmen Mountain was woven with a huge blood-red spider web. In the middle of the spider web, there was a huge human-headed spider. This human-headed spider's head was more than 30 meters long. Each of its legs was more than 40 meters long. Just by relying on its body alone, it almost completely blocked the huge heavenly gate cave. With the help of the blood demon's eyes, Immortal could clearly see its level. A level 1 mutated beast. This was the first time in his life that he saw a mutated beast. At this time, hundreds of holes with a diameter of 5 meters appeared on the 999 steps in front of the heavenly gate cave. Every hole was bottomless. Above the holes, there was an endless stream of human-headed spiders crawling out. These human-headed spiders formed a long line of human-headed spiders and headed towards base C10. When Immortal saw this scene, he thought to himself, so that's how it is. The last time he passed by here, these spiders should still be hiding underground. At this moment, his draconic sense trembled slightly. Bang! Almost at the same time, all the human-headed spiders on the stairway to heaven and the human-headed spiders heading towards base C10 exploded into a cloud of blood mist. This blood mist extended from the stairway to heaven for 50 kilometers and arrived at the wall of base C10. It formed a 50-kilometer long blood mist belt. With this, Immortal's evolution points increased by more than 10 million. On the blood-red spider web on Tianmen Mountain, when the human-headed Spider King saw this, it immediately opened its huge mouth in grief and indignation. It let out a heart-wrenching cry. Squeak, 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 squeak. Chapter 141. Immortal's dragons will shook slightly, and thousands of human-headed spiders exploded. In the blood-red spider web above Tianmen Cave, the human-headed Spider King suddenly let out a sorrowful cry. Squeak, 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 squeak. However, in the next moment, it was as if a huge invisible meteorite had smashed into Tianmen Cave. Rumble! The entire Tianmen Cave collapsed. The human-headed Spider King's reaction was also very fast. The moment Tianmen Cave collapsed, it jumped down from the blood-red spider web. It burrowed into a crack in the belly of Tianmen Mountain. However, this was just the beginning. Boom, 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 boom. 9 dragons will meteorites with a diameter of 100 meters smashed into Tianmen Mountain at almost the same time. After dragons will advance to level 2, Immortal could condense 10 dragons will meteorites at the same time. 9 dragons will meteorites smash down at the same time. A huge shockwave spread out brazenly. Although dragons will had no heat, when the mountain was crushed by the huge pressure, it still exploded with a huge amount of energy. The shockwave uprooted all the trees within a radius of more than 10 kilometers. When the shockwave dissipated, the 2-square-kilometer mountaintop had long disappeared. The entire Tianmen Mountain had been blasted into a pile of ruins. As for the human-headed Spider King, it had long been blasted into pieces. The power of the dragons will meteorites was actually so terrifying. The most terrifying thing was that Immortal had released the dragons will meteorites from 50 kilometers away. 50 kilometers, according to ancient terms, was 100 miles. Killing the enemy's head from 100 miles away. What kind of terrifying power was this? Of course, the greater the power, the greater the consumption. At this moment, Immortal felt that his dragons will had almost been consumed by more than half. He took out a bottle of Dragon's Will recovery liquid from his personal storage and drank it. After about 5 minutes, the consumed Dragon's Will had been recovered by more than half. He looked up in the direction of Tianmen Mountain again. He saw that the corpse aura there was much fainter than before. However, there was still a lot of corpse aura. Immortal knew that this was because there were still many human-headed spiders in the spider cave. He immediately tapped his feet lightly. Only a 100-meter-tall dragon's shadow was left on the spot. He had disappeared on the spot. If it wasn't for the thick fog, this dragon's shadow would definitely shock everyone in the base. In front of the ruins of Tianmen Mountain, Immortal's figure instantly appeared. He looked at the spider caves on the stairway to heaven. Although there were no more human-headed spiders climbing up, there should still be a lot of them inside. Immortal's dragon will entered the spider cave. The spider cave was about 2 to 3 kilometers below the ground. There were hundreds and thousands of tunnels below, extending in all directions. In these tunnels, there were also thousands of human-headed spiders. Immortal frowned. Where did this passageway lead to? How many human-headed spiders were there? A moment later, he shook his head and decided not to dwell on it any longer. He used his dragon sense to detonate all the human-headed spiders. In an instant, he gained another 50 million evolution points. After that, he used the dragon will meteorite to collapse the cave entrance. Only then did he speak in his mind. System, sign in. The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, spider's lair. Sign in reward, blood spider silk. This was a skill. Immortal looked at the skill description in his mind. Crimson spider silk. Activates the virus in the body to shoot out crimson spider silk. The spider silk can be hard or soft. When it is hard, it can pierce through metal and stone. When it is soft, it can stick to all things. The crimson spider silk is extremely tough. Those below mutated zombies cannot cut through the crimson spider silk. When Immortal saw this, his mind moved slightly. A crimson spider silk as thick as a finger instantly condensed from his body and shot out along his fingertip. Ding! With a soft sound, it was nailed into a huge rock. It could pierce through metal and stone. As expected. Moreover, Immortal could also feel that this crimson spider silk seemed to be able to change into many shapes while being flexible. It had endless uses. However, this had to be slowly studied in the future. He put away the crimson spider silk. On his back, the crimson wings spread out. His wings flapped slightly, and his body instantly rose into the air. Bang! A sonic boom came from behind him. His speed instantly increased greatly. He flew forward at a speed of 1,000 meters per second. However, he did not return to base C10. Instead, he went to base C1. The matter here had been resolved. He also left 6 level 8 psychokinesis here. It was enough to deal with attacks below mutated zombies. Next, he would return to base C1. He would leave behind a large number of level 8 psychokinesis here. This way, even if he left base C1 in the future, he would not have to worry about infected creatures attacking the base. At the same time, he would leave behind a large number of level 8 psychokinesis. Not only would he leave behind a large number of spies, but the evolution points of the infected creatures they killed would also be credited to him. It was definitely a profitable business with little capital. More than half an hour after Immortal left Tianmen Mountain, all the human-headed spiders in base C10 had been cleaned up. The sun in the sky gradually showed its face. The thick fog was slowly dispelled. At this moment, everyone's attention was on the 6th level, 8 psychokinesis. These 6 people were just ordinary people in the past. Some did dirty and tiring work every day. Chapter 142. The others couldn't make up their minds. The kid rubbed his nose and said casually, "We can reach level 8 psychokinesis at the same time because of the mysterious powerhouse." The base chief heard this and nodded, "I see." The kid shook his head and said, "But as for the other information about the mysterious powerhouse, what do you say?" "Oh right, no comment." The other 5 nodded. They agreed with the kid. The base chief saw this and hurriedly said, Of course. Since it's about the mysterious powerhouse, don't say anything that's not convenient for you to say. I won't ask any more." Then he ordered the person next to him, "Tell everyone that the mysterious powerhouse is the main contributor to the rescue of the base today. The 6 powerful psychokinesis are also related to the mysterious powerhouse. As for the other things, don't ask too much. If the mysterious powerhouse is unhappy, then you'll be the sinner of the entire base." At noon that day, Immortal returned to the base. The soldiers guarding the base saw Immortal return and felt a lot more at ease. They were always on tenterhooks when Immortal wasn't around. A soldier guarding the base mustered up the courage to greet Immortal. "Mister? You're back." The rest of the soldiers saw this and felt a chill in their hearts. The captain next to him glared at the soldier. They all knew that the mysterious powerhouse didn't like to be disturbed. This guy was courting death. However, out of everyone's expectations, Immortal nodded at the soldier. Then he leisurely walked in the direction of the corpse farm. After Immortal's back was out of sight, The captain let out a long sigh of relief. He glared at the soldier again. Iron slag, you're courting death. The other soldiers also felt that their palms were sweaty. But the soldier shook his head and said, "Who said he's terrifying? I think he's very easygoing." After he said this, the others also reacted. "It's very surprising. He's not as scary as the rumors say." The captain also nodded. "The rumors are a bit exaggerated." But then he warned everyone, "But even so, don't be so arrogant and go to the corpses. The chief has given the order that if we disturb Mr. Mo, we will be punished by military law." Everyone's expression froze. "Yes, Captain," he hastily replied. When Mo returned to the corpse farm, Happy and Old Li were naturally happy. Old Li chuckled and said, "Now that you're back, you won't be leaving anytime soon, right?" Mo nodded. "Yes, I plan to stay for a while longer." The 9 virus avatars had gone to scout for information, but there had been no reply yet. Mo did not plan to leave the base until he figured out the strength of the king. In any case, he had more than 200 million evolution points to sign Indiana. It was enough for him to sign in for half a year. As for the draconic ruins in the new province, he planned to take a look at it after he reached level 4. In the next 3 months, apart from signing in every day, Mo activated the psychokinesis of ordinary people. Of the dragon will clones he sent, 7 of them were killed before they could even see the strength of the Qin First Emperor zombie. Only the last 2 were prepared in advance and were able to see the strength of the Qin First Emperor zombie. Level 8 super mutated zombie, he finally figured out the strength of the Qin First Emperor zombie. The stone in Mo heart finally fell to the ground. He was not afraid of the level 8 super mutated zombie. He had the blood dragon armor, which could withstand any attack on Earth. In addition to the Titan dragon chest armor, nothing on Earth could break it. With these 2 layers of invincible defense and the small success of Dragon Shadow Step, even if he could not defeat the Qin First Emperor zombie, he could not do anything to him. The only thing he had to worry about was that if the Qin First Emperor zombie could not kill him, he would become angry out of humiliation and kill all the humans. Mo would not be able to do anything about it. Thus, in the past 3 months, Mo continued to sign in and increase his strength. On the other hand, he continued to activate the civilians in the base, causing them to become psychokinesis. With his current dragon will, he could activate the dragon will of 3 people at the same time in a day. In the past 3 months, there were more than 270 level 8 psychokinesis in base C1. However, these 270 level 8 psychokinesis had not been exposed yet. They were just living in the base as ordinary people. If there was a need one day, Mo would give the order, and more than 270 psychokinesis would appear at the same time. What a spectacular scene that would be! Mo also activated Yang Kang's daughter, Yang Xiaoyan, to become a level 8 psychokinesis. At the same time, he also used his psychic blessing on Old Li and Happy. As usual, Happy did not react. Mo had already expected this. But what surprised him was that Old Li did not react to his psychic blessing. Mo wondered if it was because of Old Li's old age. Previously, he had only blessed humans under the age of 60. Old Li was almost 70 years old now. The next day, Mo found another old man in his 70s and used his psychic blessing on him. As a result, the old man in his 70s was also successfully activated and became a level 8 psychokinesis. This made Mo even more puzzled. One was Happy, and the other was Old Li. The 2 people closest to him could not be activated into psychokinesis. What the hell was going on? Mo could not figure it out, so he did not think too much about it. On this day, he felt the surging power in his body. He knew that he was about to break through. After midnight that night, Mo signed in again and obtained 100 drops of modification liquid. After taking more than 30 drops, his body began to heat up. In just 5 minutes, the surging power in his body seemed to be about to overflow. He couldn't help but want to find something to test his powerful strength. But in the end, he resisted. With his current strength, if he dared to go outside and try it, he would scare people to death. He took a few deep breaths and looked at his attributes in his mind. Name, Xianxia, level 4 Great Hunter, level 2 Long Xianxia, evolution path, Titan Dragon, Phew, Xianxia let out a long breath. He was finally a level 4 Great Hunter. He was confident that with his current strength, it should not be a problem for him to challenge a level 8 super mutated zombie. At this point, he finally felt a little more at ease. One afternoon, half a month after Xianxia's breakthrough, Xianxia's eyes lit up. Under the grape trellis in the corpse farm, Old Li called Xianxia and Happy over. The three of them sat around the stone table. Xianxia joked, "Old Li, what's the matter? Why are you making it so grand? It's like a leader having a meeting." Old Li laughed twice and looked at Xianxia and Happy with gratification. Then he said, "Little Happy, I, Old Li, have no children in my life. I have always treated the two of you as my children. Before I close my eyes, I hope to see the two of you together. Then I can close my eyes when I die. Little Mo, you're not young anymore. Happy is 26 years old, right? Today, the two of you give me a straightforward answer. Can you two succeed?" Chapter 143. Under the grape trellis of the corpse farm. The warm sunlight caressed the faces of Xianxia and the other two. Old Li asked, "Give me a straight answer. Can you guys do it or not?" Xianxia turned to look at Happy. He saw that Happy was also looking at him. Her eyes were filled with anticipation and nervousness. Her appearance was lovable and made one's heart ache. Xianxia couldn't help but laugh. He rubbed her head and turned to look at Old Li. "Uncle Li, don't worry. I will treat Happy well for the rest of my life." There were no flowery words, no touching vows of eternal love. There were only a few simple words. How many vows of eternal love made it to the end? Weren't those couples who truly spent their lives simple and unadorned? When Happy heard Xianxia's words, the tears in her eyes were like sparkling diamonds under the sunlight. Ever since she came to the corpse farm, Xianxia had taken care of her like a sister. At that time, she had already secretly given her heart to him. But she had always felt inferior. She was just a mute girl. Would Brother Mo despise her? Later, when she knew that Xianxia had become a mysterious expert, she felt even more inferior. One was a powerful and mysterious expert, and the other was just a mute girl who couldn't even speak. The two of them were from two completely different worlds. Although Brother Mo still treated her as well as before, she still felt a little uneasy. Now that she finally got Brother Mo's answer, how could she not cry? Old Li looked at Happy again. Happy only hated that she couldn't speak at this time. Her eyes seemed to be able to speak. Her gaze was like the sunlight reflected by the waves, constantly jumping. She nodded repeatedly. But then she felt a little uneasy. Her hands trembled slightly as she gestured with her hand. "I'm afraid that I'll be a burden to Brother." Xianxia laughed and rubbed Happy's head again. He messed up her neatly combed hair. He said, "Silly girl, your Brother Mo is very capable. How can you be a burden to me?" Seeing this, Old Li was relieved. He couldn't help but laugh. Good. Fortunately, there's no wine. If there was wine, the two of us would drink to our heart's content. Xianxia laughed and said, "You just want to find an excuse to drink. Don't you find it troublesome?" As he spoke, he returned to his room and took out 2 bottles of white wine. Old Li laughed again. "You brat, you even secretly hid such a treasure." That afternoon, the two of them had a hearty drink. Old Li said drunkenly, "From the looks of it, are you planning to leave the base again in the next few days?" Xianxia nodded. "Yes, I do plan to go out." Li's tongue was a little stiff. "You have to be more careful and accompany Happy." The next morning, even after Xianxia finished helping Happy, Old Li still did not come out. He probed with his draconic will, and his expression changed. From his probing, Old Li was no longer breathing. The cells in his body had long lost their activity. Xianxia hurried to Old Li's house. Happy knew that something had happened, so he followed him. After a moment, Xianxia sighed heavily and shook his head. Old Li was gone. He died without any illness. He was 68 years old. Happy's tears rolled down like pearls from a broken necklace. She seemed to have lost her strength. Immortal hugged Happy and let her lean on his shoulder. Only then did he know why Old Li asked him and Happy to make a statement and settle the matter yesterday. Old Li had a premonition that his time was up. Funerals in the apocalypse were very simple. They were supposed to be cremated. But Old Li once said that if he died one day, he hoped to be buried. Immortal then chose a place for himself. He found someone to dig a hole and buried Old Li. Only Immortal and Happy attended the funeral. They did not wear mourning clothes. The two of them stood silently in front of Old Li's grave for a long time. The funeral was completed. Happy's eyes were red and swollen. He gestured with his hand. "Do you want to set up a tombstone for Uncle Li?" Immortal looked at the new grave in front of him and just shook his head. Happy had always been like Immortal. Since Immortal did not intend to set up a tombstone for Uncle Li, she gave up. 7 days after Old Li was buried, Old Li was buried. Immortal said goodbye to Happy. He had to go to Wuxia province and sign in at the Dragon Ruins. With his current speed, it would take at most 3 to 5 days to go back and forth, including the delay in the middle. On the morning of the second day after he left, in the northwest of Base C1, the ground near the dam suddenly bulged quickly. It was as if something was trying to break free from the ground. A moment later, the ground quickly cracked open. A human-headed spider quickly jumped out. Then, the second, the third, the fourth, countless human-headed spiders kept jumping out. At the same time, hundreds of holes appeared on the ground around the dam. Countless human-headed spiders crawled out of each hole. On the ground on the other side of the dam, there were also hundreds of holes. A zombie crawled out of each hole. Moreover, these zombies were obviously not ordinary zombies. Their grayish-white eyes revealed a gaze that only intelligent creatures would have. In the end, thousands of zombies gathered into a torrent and headed toward Base C1. Thousands of human-headed spiders also gathered into a red stream and headed toward Base C1. Half an hour later, on the wall of Base C1, some soldiers discovered these zombies and human-headed spiders. In the base, the alarm sounded. All the members of the hunter group rushed to the wall. Looking at the zombies and human-headed spiders surging over, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Dou Xiaodo's expression was extremely solemn. She said to Guojutao next to her, "Leader, the strength of these zombies should have reached the strength of level 8 and above. There are many level 10 strong mutated zombies. There are even a few that have reached the level of super mutated zombies." Guojutao's expression was also more solemn than ever. "Mr. Imo is not here. Everyone cheer up." The pressure in his heart was greater than ever. Not to mention those blood-red human-headed spiders. Just the number of zombies alone was probably more than 100,000. Although the number was much less than when millions of zombies besieged the city. Almost all of them were level 8 strong mutated zombies and above. There were even a few super mutated zombies. With the current strength in the base, it was impossible to defend. If there was a glimmer of hope at this time, it could only be Mr. Imo. But someone saw that Mr. Imo had left the base 2 days ago. Could it be that today was the real end of Base C1? At the same time, on the sentry tower on the east side of the base, 2 figures were overlooking the entire base. One of them was a soldier who was originally on the sentry tower. But at this time, his gaze was respectfully looking at another person. This other person was none other than Immortal. At this time, the color of Immortal's skin had merged with the sentry tower. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't be able to tell. Chapter 144. It turned out that the one that left Base C1 2 days ago was Immortal's doppelganger. His real body had been hiding in Base C1 all this time. He knew that as soon as he left Base C1, something big would happen. Right now, he wasn't looking at the hundreds of thousands of mutated zombies outside the city, nor did he care about the millions of human-headed spiders. His eyes were fixed on a certain spot in the base. At the same time, in the wilderness outside the base, the mutated zombies had stopped 1 kilometer away from the city wall. At such a close distance, if they really wanted to charge, It would only take a dozen seconds for them to reach the city wall. The human-headed spiders spread out in all directions. They planned to surround the entire base. At the same time, Immortal's draconic will moved. He had already given orders to the 270 level 8 psychokinesis zombies in the base. Those level 8 psychokinesis zombies all headed toward the northwest city wall. Below the city wall, the soldiers saw that these ordinary people were actually going up the city wall. They all shouted, "Are you deaf? Didn't you hear the alarm? At this time, you should be hiding at home. Running all the way here, do you want to die faster?" However, these ordinary people in their eyes didn't care about them at all. Instead, they slowly floated up and floated toward the city wall. Seeing this, the soldiers all widened their eyes. Psychokinesis? So many psychokinesis. How is this possible? How can Aunt Zhang have psychokinesis? Damn it, Uncle Wang has psychokinesis too. The most shocked of them all was a soldier in his 40s. He watched helplessly as his son walked past him. He wanted to struggle and pull his son back, but he realized that he couldn't move at all. "Little Tian, you have psychokinesis too?" He said something that even he thought was ridiculous. In their family, neither he nor his son had ever become a hunter or a telekinesis master. This had always been the family's regret. Now that his son was 16 years old, he was already working as an assistant for the chefs in the base's cafeteria. If his son had psychokinesis, how could he work as an assistant in the kitchen? However, at the next moment, his son had already levitated into the air. Following Auntie Zhang, Uncle Wang, and the others, they flew towards the city wall. The soldier was so shocked that he couldn't speak for a long time. His son really had psychokinesis. The hunters on the city wall looked like they had seen a ghost when they saw the 300 people floating in the air. Ever since the incident with Lun Yen, the base had suffered a huge blow. Psychokinesis was almost completely wiped out. How could they not be shocked by the sudden appearance of so many telekinesis masters? What was even more inconceivable was that Auntie Zhang, who was sweeping the floor, and Uncle Wang, who was in the boiler room, were both suffering from psychokinesis. And from the looks of it, his telekinesis level wasn't low either. He estimated that it was level 6 or 7, or even level 7 or 8. This had completely overturned everyone's understanding. At the same time, 1 kilometer away from the city wall, those zombies seemed to be impatient. Those super mutant zombies roared one after another. All 100,000 mutated zombies immediately rushed towards the city wall. Behind them, the smoke was like a giant dragon, slowly rising into the air. Immortal's dragons will naturally also detected the situation outside the city wall. However, he didn't make a move. The attacks of these super mutant zombies were a good opportunity for those level 8 psychokinesis to train. As long as those super mutant zombies didn't make a move, there was no need to worry. His attention was still fixed on a certain spot in the base. At the same time, the 100,000 mutant zombies had already rushed to 500 meters away from the city wall. It was also at this moment that the 270 or so level 8 psychokinesis attacked at the same time. They tore off their jackets. Almost everyone had dozens of black throwing knives on the inside of their jackets. Every knife was actually a bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knife. Ordinary throwing knives were already very difficult to deal with the super mutant zombies. Only the bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knife could easily penetrate the body of the super mutant zombies. With the current strength of Immortal's dragon's will, it wasn't very useful for him to use the bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knife. Therefore, he distributed the knives to the psychokinesis. At the same time, he spent more than 10 days to receive 1,000 bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knives every time he checked in. Only then did he give each of them 60 bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knives. More than 270 level 8 psychokinesis and more than 16,000 bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knives. Like a black wave, they flew towards the super mutant zombies. Chi. In the first wave of attack, more than 200 super mutant zombies fell to the ground. The super mutant zombies behind were all shocked. They thought that these were just ordinary throwing knives. They never thought that these throwing knives would be so sharp. Moreover, they had an extremely strong corrosive effect on zombies. Originally, no matter how big the wounds of the super mutant zombies were, as long as their heads weren't blown up, they could quickly recover. However, after being hit by these black throwing knives, these super mutant zombies couldn't recover at all. They were constantly corroded and eventually turned into smelly, broken corpses. When the rest of the super mutant zombies saw this, they all slowed down. When the second wave of over 100 super mutant zombies fell again, these super mutant zombies finally stopped. They were pacing back and forth 800 meters away from the base's city wall. In their eyes, this 800 meters was a hurdle. Taking one step forward meant death. When the super mutant zombies saw this, they all roared. Roar, roar. The huge roar of the zombies spread over a radius of tens of kilometers. They all raised their right hands. They lowered their bodies. In the next moment, the 6 super mutant zombies took off like catapults. They quickly ran towards the city wall. Their speed was so fast that even the flying knives controlled by the level 8 psychokinesis couldn't hurt them at all. On the city wall, when the hunter group saw this, they all felt a sense of despair. Even with so many level 8 psychokinesis, they couldn't stop these super mutant zombies. So what if they had more people in the hunter group? Guju Tao knew that today was the end. But as a member of the hunter group, even if he died, he had to fight to the death. He opened his eyes wide and used almost all of his strength to let out a sharp roar. Hunter group, attack. The hunter group consisted of psychokinesis and level 1 hunters. They knew that they couldn't survive today, so they all had the will to die. Fight to the death. One by one, they jumped off the city wall and faced the 6 super mutant zombies. The 6 super mutant zombies had a trace of disdain in their eyes. They roared out, "Lowly human, poor reptile, die." Their sharp claws under the sun were cold and glaring. Their eyes seemed to want to devour people. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Chapter 145. The 6 super mutant zombies rushed towards the thousands of people in the hunting group with a violent force. There was a trace of disdain in their eyes. Even if there were tens of thousands of people in the hunter group, it was not worth mentioning in front of the 6 super mutant zombies. The huge gap in strength could not be made up by such a small number of people. However, just as they were about to rush into the crowd, the ground under their feet suddenly cracked. From the cracks, sanguisurincus as thick as an arm jumped out. These sanguisurincus, like snakes, almost instantly entangled the 6 super mutant zombies. The super mutant zombies were all extremely powerful. But at this time, being entangled by these sanguisurincus, they wanted to struggle, but they could not break free at all. Then, on these sanguisurincus, countless sharp thorns of more than 1 foot long suddenly popped out. Puff, 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 all pierced into the bodies of these super mutant zombies. At this time, the 6 super mutant zombies looked like 6 pieces of barbecued meat pierced through by countless iron skewers. At this point, the 6 super mutant zombies were all killed. The next moment, all the sanguisurincus retracted back to the ground and disappeared. The people in the hunter group were already prepared to die. They thought they would be torn apart in the next second. However, they were still alive, but the 6 super mutant zombies were pierced with countless holes. Blood splattered, motionless. What happened? Was it Mr. Mo? But didn't Mr. Mo leave the base 2 days ago? At this time, on the watchtower inside the city wall, 6 sanguisurincus quickly retracted along the watchtower. Finally, they crawled back to Emo Shi's feet, along his legs, and retracted into Emo Shi's body. During this process, he did not even look outside the city at all. His eyes were fixed on a certain place in the base. There, a blood-red corpse gas rose into the sky. Just one corpse's aura was 100 times stronger than the aura of the 100,000 super mutant zombies outside the city and the millions of human-headed spiders. At this moment, there was finally some movement in the area Emo Shi was staring at. Over there was Old Li's grave. But at this time, Old Li's grave shook violently. At a certain moment, boom. There was an explosion. The entire tomb suddenly exploded, leaving behind a huge crater with a diameter of more than 50 meters. A figure slowly walked out from the dust. If Happy was there at that moment, he would definitely be able to recognize him. This person was none other than Old Li, her Uncle Li. However, at this moment, Old Li's back was no longer hunched and his legs were no longer lame. His figure seemed to be much taller than before. Two ripping sounds came from his back. His clothes were torn. His upper body was naked. A pair of black-gray demon wings spread open instantly. When fully extended, it was more than 6 meters wide. With a flap of his wings, he soared into the sky. 50 meters above the ground, it flapped its wings and floated in the air. Then, a huge and unparalleled pressure was released from his body to the entire base. In the base, all the ordinary humans could not even stand under this huge pressure and fell to the ground one after another. Old Li slowly stretched out his hands, and a half-human, half-zombie roar came from his throat. Primitive humans, enjoy your last moments as humans. In the base, everyone looked up in horror. When they saw the human with wings above their heads, they all cried out in surprise. Old Li. This, Old Li is a zombie? Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. Immortal was a mysterious powerhouse, and Old Li lived in the same courtyard as Immortal. Therefore, everyone in the base was naturally paying attention to Old Li. Therefore, most of the people in the base knew Old Li. He was an honest and good man. He did the most inconspicuous job of keeping corpses in the base for decades. And they heard that Old Li had died a few days ago. Now, not only was Old Li not dead, but he suddenly appeared in front of them. He even flapped his wings and clambered above their heads. This made everyone wonder if there was a mistake. The old leader of the corpse farm was so shocked that his jaw almost fell off. He usually scolded Old Li like a child, but he did not expect him to be a zombie. And by the looks of it, he definitely had a high status among the zombies. Just thinking about it scared him. With Old Li's strength, he could smash him to pieces with one slap. Happy widened her beautiful eyes and looked at Old Li in the sky in disbelief. How could Uncle Li be a zombie? More than 10 days ago, he had even called her and brother Mo to a meeting to settle their matter. Then Uncle Li died. At that time, she and brother Mo buried Uncle Li as newbies. How could Uncle Li suddenly come back to life? And he became a zombie. Do Xiaodo, who had stayed in the corpse farm, also felt her mind go blank. Uncle Li was a zombie. This was too ridiculous. Even a novel would not dare to write like this. Among the more than 100,000 people in the base, the only one who was not surprised was Immortal. At this time, he was standing on the sentry tower. He looked at the Old Li in the sky calmly. After waiting for 2 days, this old man finally appeared. In fact, after he came back this time, he had already noticed that something was wrong with Old Li. After his dragons will reached level 2, his probing ability of human cells, blood, muscle tissue, and bones was 100 times stronger than before. When he accidentally probed, he found that Old Li's cells were different from ordinary people. In addition, when he blessed Old Li with his telekinesis, Old Li did not have any reaction, just like Happy. He felt that something was wrong with Old Li. He also used the blood demon's eyes to look at Old Li. In the end, it showed that his species was human every time. However, not only did this not make Immortal let down his guard, it made him feel even more strange. After that, Old Li asked him when he would leave. He guessed that Old Li would make a move after he left this time. The result was just as he expected. He used a clone to pretend to leave. And Old Li really did make a move. Now, he compared the blurry figure he saw in the nest's consciousness with Old Li's figure. They were exactly the same. The real king of zombies was not Qin Shi Huang's zombie, but Old Li. Of course, there were still many questions that he did not understand. For example, why did his blood demon's eyes not detect the zombie aura on Old Li's body before? Also, why did Old Li lurk in the base for so many years without making a move, and now he was going to make a move? However, this was not the time to explore these. Old Li was a zombie, and zombies must die. It was enough to know this. At this time, blood-red zombie aura surrounded Old Li's body. And this blood-red zombie aura was so thick that it could not be seen by Immorsher's blood demon's eyes. Even those ordinary people could see it with their naked eyes. Old Li lowered his head and looked at Happy, who had fallen to the ground and was looking at him in disbelief. His roar was actually gentler than before. Happy, your Uncle Li is already dead. And now, at this point, the gentleness in his voice had become violent and domineering. It's the king of zombies. How many people thought that Qin Shi Huang was the king of zombies? How many people did not think that Old Li was the king of zombies? Show me your claws. Chapter 146. The appearance of the zombie king, Old Li, shocked almost everyone in the base. Only Immorsher was calm. A blood-red color flashed in his cold eyes. The blood demon eyes opened. Race, zombie. Level 10 super mutated zombie. The zombie king, Old Li, had reached level 10 super mutated zombie. With Immorsher's current strength, he was confident that he could deal with a level 8 super mutated zombie. But if he encountered a level 10 super mutated zombie, it would be difficult. Of course, he was not worried about himself. He was not worried about Happy. He had 2 layers of defense that no creature on Earth could break. He also had Dragon Shadow Steps. Although he could not kill the Zombie King could not do anything to him either. He was not worried about Happy either. He had the enhanced version of the Dragon Breath Pearl, which could block any attack below level 10 super mutated zombie. If the Zombie King dared to attack him, it would be asking for trouble. He was worried about the entire base. With his and the Zombie King's strength, if they really fought, the entire base would not be able to withstand it. At this time, the Zombie King, Old Li, slowly turned his head to look at the sentry tower. No one noticed Immorsher there. But when Immorsher killed the 6 super mutated zombies, he already knew. He slowly shook his head, and a half-human, half-zombie voice came from his throat. Little Immo, how dare you trick me? Immorsher fixed his eyes on the Zombie King, but he didn't say anything. He was not like the main characters in novels who talked before a big battle. They could talk for 2 chapters. He was the type who would not talk nonsense when he could fight. On his back, a mass of blood-red energy slowly condensed into an illusory blood-red wing. His figure also slowly floated in the air. Only then did everyone realize that Immorsher was still in the base. And as a human, he could fly in the air. This caused everyone to be pleasantly surprised. Mr. Immo is still in the base. Great, we're saved. What king of zombies? Not to mention one, even if there were 10 of them, they would still be no match for Mr. Immo. If Immorsher had noticed this person, he would have given him 2 tight slaps. Who told you to jinx it? Just one of them was enough to give him a headache, and now you want 10 of them? I'm not Yiwen. However, at that moment, all of Immorsher's attention was focused on the Zombie King. He didn't have the energy to care about anything else. The king of zombies didn't seem to be too angry about Immorsher killing 6 super mutant zombies. He shook his head slightly. I don't want to kill you. You'd better leave as far as possible. Immorsher's face was calm. Although she didn't say anything, she didn't leave either. Seeing this, the Zombie King said, I see that you're a rare genius among humans, so I'll talk to you a bit more. Survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. The evolution of the human species is too slow. It's impossible for them to adapt to the increasingly intense competition for survival. The limit of a human's strength is a level 10 hunter. And a level 10 hunter will only be eliminated in the future competition for survival. In the end, the human species will go extinct like the dinosaurs. So, if you want human civilization to continue, you must first turn them into zombies. Among these zombies, a small portion will become super-evolved zombies. Only when they reach the level of super-evolved zombies can they adapt to the future competition for survival. Do you understand? Immorsher was still speechless. On the city wall, the hot girl refuted. Is this why you infected billions of people around the world and turned them into zombies? The Zombie King nodded slowly, then slowly shook his head. It's not that I want to infect humans. There are many things that you don't understand. You don't need to understand. In short, you just need to know that I'm doing this for the continuation of human civilization. After that, it seemed that it was too lazy to say another word. From its throat, it let out a low growl like a beast. Although it was just a low growl. However, this voice spread throughout the entire base. In the next moment, the more than 1 million human-headed spiders around the base suddenly surged toward the city wall of the base. Like a blood-red tide, they were about to drown the entire base. At the same time, outside the northwest corner of the city wall, nearly 100,000 strong mutated zombies also rushed toward the city wall together. Seeing this, Immortal immediately spread out his dragon's mind to kill all the strong mutated zombies and human-headed spiders. But at this moment, a huge wave of telekinesis pressed against his dragon's mind. He could feel that this huge wave of telekinesis was not dragon's mind. It was telekinesis. But it was not the telekinesis of ordinary psychokinesis. It was a huge telekinesis that far exceeded level 10 psychokinesis. Immortal turned his head, and his blood demon eyes swept across the 100,000 strong mutated zombies outside the northwest corner of the city wall. Only then did he realize that among the 100,000 strong mutated zombies, there were more than 100 zombies. They were not strong mutated zombies, nor super mutated zombies. The first one frowny face race, zombie, level 3 telekinesis master. The second one frowny face race, zombie, level 2 telekinesis master. The third one frowny face race, zombie, level 5 telekinesis master. These more than 100 zombies, although in terms of physique, were only considered ordinary zombies. But they all had telekinesis. And they were not ordinary psychokinesis, but telekinesis masters that far exceeded psychokinesis. Among these more than 100 zombies, the highest level was a level 5 telekinesis master, and the lowest was a level 1 telekinesis master. The huge telekinesis of more than 100 telekinesis master zombies condensed into a terrifying wave of telekinesis that covered the sky and earth, blocking Immortal's dragon's mind. Although the telekinesis of so many telekinesis masters was only able to fight to a draw with Immortal's huge dragon's mind. But at this time, it was impossible for Immortal to divide his dragon's mind to kill those human-headed spiders and strong mutated zombies. At this time, all the telekinesis master zombies were actually very shocked in their hearts. With more than 100 telekinesis masters, they thought that they could easily kill this human if they worked together. In the end, this human's telekinesis alone blocked the overwhelming telekinesis of 100 telekinesis masters. How huge was this human's telekinesis? It was more than powerful. It was simply abnormal. Animal. Inhumane. The zombie king in the sky also showed a hint of surprise in its eyes. It said, "With the body of a human, you can become a great hunter and a telekinesis master on our barren planet. It has already surprised me. I didn't expect your telekinesis to be so huge. With one person's telekinesis, you can resist the telekinesis of more than 100 telekinesis masters. It's really amazing." Everyone on the ground had no idea that there were two huge waves of telekinesis competing in the sky. At this time, when they heard the Zombie King's explanation, they understood what Mr. Mo was doing at this time. What was a telekinesis master? Obviously, it should be a level higher than psychokinesis. It was similar to a hunter compared to a zombie hunter. Now, more than 100 telekinesis masters' telekinesis were twisted into one. How terrifying was that? They probably didn't even need to use any weapons. They could just use this telekinesis to blow up the entire base. And Mr. Mo was able to resist the telekinesis of more than 100 telekinesis masters with one person's telekinesis. How terrifying was his telekinesis? At this time, the Zombie King opened its mouth again. However, you are now resisting the telekinesis of so many telekinesis masters. How can you take care of the entire base? Before it finished speaking, the surging human-headed spiders were not far from the city wall. Nearly 100,000 strong mutated zombies were only more than 300 meters away from the city wall. I feel that if I don't let Immortal speak, I will lose a lot of words. It hurts. Chapter 147. Immortal's telekinesis was fighting against hundreds of telekinesis masters. Naturally, he had no time to care about the millions of human-headed spiders. What's more, there were nearly 100,000 strong mutated zombies. The Zombie King said coldly, "Immortal, don't be stubborn. How long can you last by yourself?" Just as he was talking, Immortal flicked his right finger gently. A blood-red thread as thick as a finger shot out more than 50 meters in an instant. It exploded in the air. But it didn't explode into smoke and fire like a bomb. Instead, it exploded into more spider webs. Thousands of spider webs. These blood-red spider webs instantly spread out to a radius of several kilometers. Then it shrouded the ground. After that, it formed a huge spider web that enveloped the entire base. Under the sunlight, this huge spider web reflected a blood-red light. A human-headed spider didn't care about the spider web at all. It planned to directly pass through the spider web and jump toward the city wall. In fact, it did pass through the spider web, but after passing through, it turned into a dozen pieces. A strong mutated zombie also tried to directly crash through the spider web with its body. After all, in its opinion, how could a mere spider web stop it? However, it was obvious that it was wrong. Before it jumped, it was still a complete zombie. After landing, it had already scattered into pieces of meat on the ground. With just this wave, more than 100,000 human-headed spiders and thousands of strong mutated zombies were cut into pieces of meat. All creatures, whether zombies, humans, or mutated beasts. At this moment, they were all horrified. This seemingly soft blood-red spider web was actually so sharp. Seeing this, the remaining zombies didn't dare to use their bodies to fight anymore. They all turned into sharp claws and blades and slashed at the blood-red spider web. However, they could only shake the spider web at most, but couldn't cut it at all. The blood-red spider web was actually so tough. Seeing this, the Zombie King slowly shook his head. His gaze moved to Immortal. "You are really getting more and more amazing. If humans could be as strong as you, I wouldn't have to spend so much effort to infect so many humans into zombies. I really can't bear to kill you." Then he pointed to the sky in the distance. He said, "If the two of us fight with all our strength, the base below will be reduced to ruins. Let's go over there." The purpose of the King of Zombies was not to kill those human beings. Instead, he infected them all and turned them into zombies, hoping that a few of them could mutate into super-mutated zombies. Therefore, they naturally didn't want to destroy the humans in the base. A glimmer of light flashed through Immortal's cold eyes. He didn't say anything, nor did he move. The Zombie King glanced at the nearly 100,000 zombies and the millions of human-headed spiders. He smiled and said, "Are you afraid that I'll cheat you? To trick you and let the zombies and human-headed spiders take the opportunity to attack the base?" Kikikik. A laugh that sounded half human and half zombie came out of his throat. "I am the King of Zombies, a level 10 super-mutated zombie. Why would I play tricks with you? Zombies aren't as despicable as humans." After that, he issued an order to all the zombies and human-headed spiders. "Without my orders, anyone who dares to attack the base will die." All the zombies and human-headed spiders were shocked. They all subconsciously took a few steps back. Only then did the King of Zombies flap his wings and slowly fly out. Immortal's blood-red wings trembled slightly, and he slowly followed. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. The King of Zombies suddenly flapped his wings and turned around abruptly. His right hand turned into a blood-red spear. This spear instantly extended a distance of 100 meters. Puff! It directly pierced through Immortal's head. A smile appeared on the King of Zombies' face. "Immortal, do you really think that only humans can play tricks? Too naive." However, at this moment, on the sentry tower, a figure instantly jumped out. This figure was so fast that it couldn't be seen by the human eye. After this figure jumped out, only a 100-meter-tall giant dragon shadow was left on the sentry tower. The next moment, this figure instantly arrived in front of the King of Zombies in the air. A black light flashed in his left hand, and the enhanced version of the bloodthirsty zombie executioner instantly slashed at the king of zombies' face. It turned out that the Immortal who was flying in the air earlier was only his virus clone. And his real body had been hiding on the sentry tower all along. What a joke, his flying speed wasn't even as fast as the dragon shadow step. How could he give up his advantage and foolishly fly into the air to get beaten up? And because the king of zombies' speed was too fast, if he used any other moves, it would be dodged by it. And Immortal's genetic martial arts needed a little bit of time to condense. In the little bit of time he took to sneak attack, there was no time to condense it. If he condensed it in advance, the king of zombies would inevitably detect it. Therefore, with a thought, he took out the bloodthirsty zombie executioner and slashed at the king of zombies. However, kalala, an ear-piercing sound rang out. When the enhanced version of the bloodthirsty zombie executioner slashed across the king of zombies' body, it actually couldn't cut through its skin at all. Only a shallow white mark was left under its skin. At the same time, a series of sparks appeared. At the same time, the king of zombies' voice sounded in Immortal's ears. You think I don't know that you have a clone? The sounds coming out of its throat sounded more and more like that of a zombie. In the next moment, it stretched out its hand and directly hugged Immortal. Then, dozens of sharp spikes instantly popped out from its body. It was trying to pierce Immortal into a sieve. However, it was also at this moment that blood-red scales appeared on the surface of Immortal's body. A set of blood-red battle armor formed on its body. Under this set of blood-red battle armor, a Titan dragon breastplate condensed. And on its head, a dragon-shaped helmet condensed. Those dozens of sharp spikes pierced the blood dragon armor, but they were unable to break through the defense at all. Only a series of sharp sounds could be heard. The king of zombies' eyes suddenly focused. How was that possible? With its current strength, the bone spikes formed in its body could be said to be indestructible. They could even easily pierce through iron and stone. This kid was definitely not more than a level 5 great hunter. How could he withstand the attack of its bone spikes? It was also at this moment that a black crossbow appeared in Immortal's right hand. This crossbow was directly pressed against the head of the king of zombies. Although the king of zombies was surprised by the defense of Immortal's battle armor, at this moment, it saw that Immortal had actually taken out an inconspicuous crossbow. It couldn't help but laugh again. Do you know that I have an indestructible body? After reaching level 10 supermutation, I can have an indestructible body. In this world, there is nothing that can break. Puff! Before it finished speaking, a wooden arrow had already been nailed into its head. Its arrogant voice came to an abrupt end. It was only at this moment that Immortal finally spoke for the first time. Then do you know that I have a Qin crossbow? Chapter 148. Qin Nu's crossbow arrow made a powerful sound. Boom! It directly nailed into the zombie king's head. The zombie king's hoarse strange laughter came to an abrupt end. That sinister smile suddenly froze on its face. Its gaze looked at the hard crossbow in Immortal's hand in disbelief. Its body had actually been broken by a mere wooden crossbow arrow. How was this possible? His body was the indestructible Vajra body. However, its shock did not last long. The next second, boom, a soft sound. The crossbow arrow in its head actually exploded in an instant. On the surface, although the zombie king's head did not explode, its brain had already exploded into a mass of paste. Its eyes, nostrils, ears, and mouth all had blood gushing out. His appearance was very frightening. It turned out that Immortal knew that although Qin Nu's crossbow arrow could break everything, but the super-mutated zombie's self-healing ability was extremely terrifying. Even if it lost its head, it could still heal itself. Naturally, it could not be killed by a crossbow arrow. So Immortal had already infused his dragon's will into this crossbow arrow. When the crossbow arrow nailed into the zombie king's head, the dragon's will hidden in the crossbow arrow directly exploded. Under the suppression of the dragon's will, the self-healing ability of the zombie king's cells almost completely disappeared. This was why the zombie king's head exploded in one fell swoop. But even so, Immortal was still not at ease. When the zombie king's body fell down, his dragon's will had already followed the small hole that the crossbow arrow shot out and once again probed into its head. Then, starting from the head, it exploded all the way down. Boom, 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 boom. A muffled sound came from the zombie king's body. In the end, its body crashed onto the ground with a bang. On the surface, its body looked intact. But only Immortal knew that its body had already become a mass of paste. With his dragon's will suppressing the activity of the zombie king's cells, its self-healing ability could not be used at all. And Immortal also discovered that the crossbow arrow itself carried another kind of virus. This virus was also extremely lethal to Virus X. Even if he didn't use the dragon will to blow up the zombie king's body, the virus would still cause great damage to the zombie king's body, making it unable to heal itself. At this moment, the zombie king was dead. In the sky, a pair of blood-red wings sprouted from Immortal's back. It floated there quietly. Whew! He finally spat out a mouthful of turbid air. This was the benefit of cultivating both the body and mind. For ordinary people, not to mention that they couldn't dual cultivate. Even if they could dual cultivate, no one would choose to do so. After all, whether it was strengthening one's body or mind, it would take a lot of time. The result of dual cultivation was that neither of them could reach great heights. However, Immortal did not have this problem. With the sign-in system, his speed of improvement was far beyond that of ordinary people. Dual cultivation was not a problem at all. However, just as Immortal's heart was about to relax, a voice suddenly rang out. A dragon will that was as huge as a mountain suddenly came crashing down on him. This dragon will was so enormous that it seemed like it was going to swallow him whole. Immortal was a little surprised. There was actually a huge dragon will hidden in the zombie king's body. This dragon will was much stronger than his current level 2 dragon will. Moreover, this dragon will was just like the dragon will in Fan's Pure Mountains Dragon Ruins. It also wanted to devour his dragon will and take over the magpie's nest. Immortal smiled. Alright, since I can't resist, I'll just lie down and enjoy it. Soon, the incomparably powerful dragon will entered Immortal's body. It domineeringly rushed towards Immortal's brain. A hoarse voice came from the dragon will. Haha, I thought that the zombie king's indestructible body was already the strongest body on this broken planet. I didn't expect that I would encounter the indestructible body of 10,000 poisons. This is the heavens helping me, the plague dragon, making a comeback. Ha! Kid, to be able to be devoured by me, Lord Plague Dragon, is your... However, just as it said this, its words abruptly stopped. In the next moment, this arrogant, domineering, and disdainful words turned into a scream. Impossible? No. A few seconds later, its dragon will was finally devoured by Immortal. Immortal felt that his dragon will was at least 10 times stronger. As long as he devoured this dragon will a few more times, his dragon will should be able to improve again. This dragon will naturally belonged to the plague dragon. It was only now that Immortal realized that in the dragon ruins, although the plague dragon's body couldn't break free, its dragon will had already split into many dragon wills and escaped. These dragon wills were hidden in many creatures. They were slowly waiting for an opportunity. As long as there was a dragon will in the future that could strengthen the body into a giant dragon's body, it could once again reappear in the world. Moreover, this plague dragon was very cunning. Every dragon will was independent. It was impossible for Immortal to obtain information about the other dragon wills from this dragon will. He could only slowly think of a way to find it in the future. From the beginning of Immortal's battle with the Zombie King until the Zombie King was killed and fell to the ground. Until he devoured the dragon will. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in just over 10 seconds. The speed of his battle with the Zombie King was so fast that the humans below couldn't see it clearly at all. They only saw 2 shadows flash, and Immortal and the Zombie King hugged each other. After stopping for 2 to 3 seconds, the Zombie King's body fell to the ground. No one knew what kind of fierce battle Immortal had experienced in these short 10 seconds. Whether it was his body or his dragon will. They had experienced a fierce battle that they could never imagine. If Immortal didn't have the blood dragon armor, the Titan dragon breastplate, and the dragon will devour, he would have been the one to die. It was only at this moment that the shadow of the giant dragon that remained on the sentry tower slowly disappeared. Everyone looked at Immortal in surprise. The zombie king is dead. Mr. Immortal won. Mr. Immortal won. I knew it. Mr. Immortal would definitely win. From the moment the zombie king appeared, they knew that Mr. Immortal would definitely win. Because according to past experience, Mr. Mo's strength was too terrifying. No matter what enemy he encountered, he would basically crush them. Naturally, they didn't think that Mr. Mo would lose. But they would never know how dangerous this battle was for Immortal. Although there was no earth-shattering explosion, no meteorite falling from the sky. However, the danger was greater than any other time. This was the first time Immortal had truly used his full strength since he obtained the system. Although he had used his full strength twice in the past, those 2 times, it was basically a full-strength attack. It was also considered to crush the opponent. And this time, he and the Zombie King had already exchanged several blows in those short few seconds. He had almost taken out all the trump cards that he could use under such circumstances. If the Zombie King hadn't been too careless and actually courted death by closing the distance, he wouldn't have been able to kill it at all. However, this wasn't the end. He extended his dragon will and directly pressed down on the human-headed spiders and strong mutated zombies outside the blood-colored spider web. Chapter 149. Immortal killed the king of zombies and swallowed the plague dragon's dragon consciousness. This surprised all the humans, but also frightened all the infected creatures. A strong mutant zombie widened its eyes. His grayish-white eyes were filled with shock. Another strong mutant zombie was also in disbelief. No zombie could have imagined such an ending. In their eyes, their king was a godlike existence. It was the strongest existence on Earth. But now, their king was killed by a lowly human. How could they not be shocked? After they recovered from the shock, they were extremely frightened. This human was too strong. The only thing they could do now was to run away. So almost all the strong mutant zombies turned around and fled. However, could they escape? Immortal's dragon consciousness probed and attacked the human-headed spiders and strong mutant zombies outside the city wall. At the same time, the more than 100 psychic masters among the zombies once again twisted their psychic power into a huge, overwhelming psychic power, trying to stop Immortal's dragon consciousness. However, soon, the eyes of all the psychic master zombies were full of fear, because they felt that this human psychic power was at least 10 times stronger than before. Just now, the psychic power of hundreds of them could barely compete with this human psychic power. But now, this human's telekinesis was so powerful that it easily crushed their telekinesis. The next moment, bang 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 bang, the bodies of all the psychic master zombies burst into a cloud of blood mist. It was like a huge firework. The blood mist of their heads flashed a wine-red light under the sun. However, this was just the beginning. Bang 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 bang. The bodies of nearly 100,000 strong mutant zombies directly burst. Bang 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 bang. The bodies of nearly 1 million human-headed spiders directly burst. If one looked down from a high altitude, they would find that the C1 base was surrounded by a wine-red mist at this time. At this point, all the zombies were destroyed. All the human-headed spiders were destroyed. More than 100,000 people in the base once again witnessed Immortal's violence and dominance. The power of one person killed millions of people. This was not the first time they had met. But last time, they were ambushed by ordinary zombies. This time, among the corpses, there were hundreds of thousands of level 8 and above mutated zombies. A strong zombie above level 8 was enough to throw the base into chaos. Their base would not be able to withstand 100,000 level 8 and above mutated zombies. In the face of such power, the hunter group could only be cannon fodder. However, with a single thought, Immortal detonated all the infected creatures, including the strong mutant zombies above level 8. His strength was so strong that no one dared to imagine it. Whew, Emosure let out another long sigh of relief. Finally, everything was settled. He took out 5 bottles of recovery potion and 2 bottles of brain cell recovery potion. He swallowed them all in one go. In this battle, on the surface, it seemed that he had the absolute advantage, and he had been crushing everyone along the way. However, only he knew how much his body and brain had been drained. After swallowing all the recovery potions, his body began to recover rapidly. His dragon will was also rapidly recovering. His eyes fell on the corpse of the zombie king. He felt a little regretful in his heart. According to what the zombie king had said before, it should know a lot of things. It was a pity that in the battle just now, he had no time to use memory plunder on it. Otherwise, he should have been able to know what it was from its memory. Shaking his head, Emosure no longer bothered about this. He said in his mind, "System, sign in." Now that he had experience, he didn't have to sign in just after midnight anymore. Instead, he kept the sign-in opportunity. If something special happened on this day, or if he went to some special place and didn't have the opportunity to sign in, wouldn't it be a big loss? He kept the sign-in opportunity until before midnight. If nothing special happened, he would sign in. Now that he had killed the zombie king, this was naturally a special event. He should be able to sign something good. In his mind, the system's response immediately came frowny face sign-in successful. Sign-in event, killing the zombie king. Sign-in reward, 1, zombie king crystal cores 10, sign-in reward, 2, zombie king's memory, sign-in reward, 3, bloodthirsty zombie slayer, ultimate version, 1 sign-in, 3 rewards. Although it took a lot of effort to kill the zombie king, it was definitely a profit. The first thing Emosure noticed was the zombie king's memory. He was just regretting that he couldn't plunder the zombie king's memory, but he didn't expect it to come so soon. Then, it was the bloodthirsty zombie slayer, ultimate version. Bloodthirsty zombie slayer, ultimate version 8,000 times sharper than the strengthened version of the bloodthirsty zombie slayer. It can cause great damage to the invincible Vajra body. Emosure was overjoyed when he saw this introduction. If he had the ultimate version of the bloodthirsty zombie slayer earlier, he wouldn't have had to fight so tirelessly just now. Finally, he looked at the zombie king's crystal core. Zombie king crystal core. The crystallization of the virus in the zombie king's body can be used to strengthen the host's body. Emosure was secretly happy when he saw this. It turned out that in addition to the modification liquid, the zombie king's crystal core could also be used to strengthen the body. He just didn't know if the effect of the zombie king's crystal core was as strong as the modification liquid. But at this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on him. He should think about it when he returned to the zombie farm. Just as he was thinking, Happy came up to him. She looked at Emosure with eyes full of concern. Emosure grinned and patted her head. "I'm fine." It was only then that Happy felt at ease. When Emosure was fighting just now, all the 100,000 people in the base were more or less worried. But the others were worried that if Emosure was defeated, the entire base would be finished. Happy was the only one who was worried about Emosure. Every time Emosure fought, she would be worried. Emosure could naturally feel the concern in Happy's eyes. He took Happy's hand and said, "Let's go. Let's go home." Happy nodded obediently. Under the gazes of the crowd, he followed Emosure to the corpse farm. At this moment, everyone was a little puzzled. Mr. Emo was so strong, why would he like a mute girl? Was it because she was beautiful? But there were many beautiful girls in the base, and they could talk and cause trouble. What was so good about her? In the end, they could only conclude that everyone had their own preferences. Of course, there were also some girls who were envious and jealous of Happy. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.